Atheist students at the University of Texas at San Antonio want students to turn in their Bibles for Playboy. You have to hand it to the atheists these days. They're always looking for ways to publicize their bankrupt moral worldview, because it is, in terms of its morality, bankrupt from the core, including when you come to issues like this porn for Bibles. This is what the students did. It says, members of the Atheist Agenda, a student organization at the University of Texas at San Antonio, are encouraging students to trade in religious texts for pornography this week with their Smut for Smut campaign. Their argument is that the Bible includes a great deal of smut. In fact, I'm going to go through some of the things, and in one sense, they're absolutely right. You'll find adultery in the Bible, incest, masochism, and satanic worship, orgies, prostitution, rape, seduction, violence of all types, annihilation of entire cities, bludgeoning of 1,000 men to death, burning victims, decapitation, gouging out of eyes, hanging, lawlessness, there's arson, blasphemy, destruction of public property, revenge, theft, voyeurism, vulgar insults. I mean, there's a lot of rough stuff in the Bible. There is a lot of things related to sex in the Bible. So the solution for the atheist is, it says, look, let's get rid of the Bible, and what we need to do is objectify women. So what will, get your Playboys, Penthouse, whatever other magazines are out there, and engage in pornography. Let's do that. And of course, what happens here is they don't talk about the consequences of pornography in our world today. How it leads to the abuse of children, it leads to rape, it leads to incest. It leads to just a bubble around individuals, creates an unrealistic view of what sexuality is like, that ruins relationships over a long period of time. But it really doesn't matter within the evolutionary worldview, because there's no right or wrong anyway. Women are nothing more than a bag of flesh with electricity coursing through it. So they can be objectified. There was a book that was written a couple of years ago by two university professors. It talked about rape, and it showed how rape is really part of the evolutionary process. We got here by rape. And so if a little bit of pornography can help a student engage in sexuality with other students, even to the point of rape, there's nothing wrong with it within the evolutionary worldview. You can support that because there is no objective morality in all of this. So when you go to the Bible, I'm reading here from Brian Godawa's book, Hollywood Worldviews, and he states this. He says, the ultimate source book for most media watchdogs is the Bible. And it ought to be, because without its definition of a universal objective morality, we have no absolute reference point for right and wrong. Without God's definition of good and evil, there can be no ultimate value difference between the diabolical acts of Hannibal Lecter and the innocent ones of Forrest Gump. The Bible alone provides a justifiable objective standard for making moral judgments that transcend the whims of personal opinion. Yes, the Bible is filled with a great deal of violence, sexual violence, to be included in all of this. But what's interesting about all of this is that the Bible, in many cases, sits back as a reporting agency describing what people do. But it doesn't stop as a reporting agency. It goes on to deal with the consequences of these deeds. Very early on, the consequences of murder. Very early on, the consequences of adultery. We see this in David's life. It ruined his kingship. It ruined his relationship with his first wife. It ruined his relationship with his own children. Solomon, following in his father's footsteps, goes after many other wives. We see what happens to Jeroboam and Rehoboam and their relationships with their father. We see the division of the kingdom, the northern tribes breaking off from the southern tribes, Israel and Judah, Jeroboam in the north, Rehoboam in the south, false worship in the north, in Bethel and Dan. There are massive consequences to this type of behavior, and the Bible tells it realistically. If you do this, the consequences of this are real. A good example of this is to go to the book of Proverbs, chapter 7. Note how the book of Proverbs starts in chapter 7. My son, keep my words and treasure my commandments within you. Keep your commandments and live, and my teaching as the apple of your eye. Bind them on your fingers, write them on the tablet of your heart. Say to wisdom, you are my sister, and call understanding your intimate friend, that they may keep you from an adulteress, from the foreigner who flatters with her words. And so at the very beginning of this, for the first 5 verses, the reader is told to watch, to embrace wisdom, put sense into your head. And then what follows here is, if you don't do this, this is what could happen. For at the window of my house I looked out through my lattice, and I saw among the naive, I discerned among the youths a young man lacking sense, passing through the street near her corner, and he takes the way to her house. So what's being done here is contrasting. This is what the godly person ought to do, have sense. This is what the naive, the senseless, ends up doing, going to the adulteress's house. The implications of this long term, as we see throughout the Bible, are disastrous. Disastrous for the individual, disastrous for the family, in many cases, disastrous for the nation. And so what these atheist students in the University of Texas at San Antonio are doing here, number one, they are objectifying women, turning them into things to be used and cast aside. Secondly, they are demonstrating that there are no moral absolutes in the world, which shows the bankruptcy of the atheistic worldview. There's no way to account one way or another whether anything is right or wrong, not just whether pornography is right or wrong. You also find in the Bible the Song of Solomon, which a lot of Christians are presented as prudes, and the prudishness of Christians is based upon an unfortunate understanding of the Bible, a misreading of the Bible. If you look at a number of Puritan writers, when you get to the Song of Solomon, you will find in there that they see this as an allegory of Christ's love for the church. Well, it isn't that. It is really a depiction of man's love for a woman and the sexual nature of it all. In fact, some of the Hebrew language that's using there is very strikingly vivid. So we as Christians shouldn't be afraid of the Bible. We should present the Bible in its true colors. It's a presentation of what happens when evil men follow an evil assumption about reality. When they take the law into their own hands, where every man does what is right in his own eyes, we begin to see the implications of this. The atheists, on the other hand, have no such standard. They can't create a bridge as to what is right and wrong, because there is nothing to construct that bridge. They have no way of really dealing with real love, because they cannot account for love in their materialistic, naturalistic worldview. Women only become objects. Men only become objects for sexual pleasure for a time. The outward consequences are insignificant as well, because we really live in a random universe, and whatever comes about, if women are beaten or women are raped, there is no really any big deal to this, because we are living in the midst of a survival of the fittest, a nature red in tooth and claw, where rape and anything else can go, because it is to bring about a steady increase in the reality of what evolution brings. And so while these young atheists at the University of Texas at San Antonio think they were clever, it only shows the bankruptcy of their worldview.
For more related to today's topic, check out The Deluded Atheist, a response to Richard Dawkins' The God Delusion. You will find it at AmericanVision.com.